Hey guys, this weekend it was revealed that 1.19 will be called the Wild Update. The focus will definitely be on adding decorative elements. The swamp will get a complete overhaul. Frogs and mangrove trees will be added to the game. But if you paid close attention, there's also some potential for technical content. So today we want to take a look at that. Unlike last year, no new block was announced that could be considered as a redstone block. But since the deep dark biome will be added in 1.19 instead of 1.18, we'll also have to wait a little bit longer for the skulk sensor to be added. So since we don't have any obvious redstone blocks to talk about, we can take a look at some of the new mechanics that were added to the game that allow us to do some pretty cool stuff. So what really caught my interest was the fact that in 1.19 we will be able to convert a stone block into a glazed terracotta block, but it will involve a lot of effort and a lot of steps. So turning stone into terracotta sounds pretty exotic, but here we got all the steps lined up. So we got lava and water, and then we converted into moss, podzol, dirt, mud, which is the new block, clay, terracotta, colored terracotta, and then glazed terracotta. Of course, a farm that will all of those steps at once would be quite cool, but yeah, the effort will be rather high. Let's take a look at all the necessary steps. So first we need a stone generator, lava flowing onto water. And then we can convert that stone by bone milling a nearby moss block into moss blocks as well. So the next step is growing a 2x2 spruce tree to convert the moss blocks into podzol. There we go. And then you can either blow up the podzol with TNT and it would drop dirt block items, or you can also use a shovel and convert the podzol into a path block. You could actually also have added this to the little overview here. So we convert the podzol into the path block, and then if you put a block above, it will be converted back into dirt. So being able to convert stone into dirt already is pretty cool, but with the 1.19 update, we can take this a step further. So using a water bottle, you will be able to convert dirt into mud. Let's take a quick look at Mojang's video. You will also be able to find the mud block in the new mangrove swamp biome. It looks a little bit like grey wool, that's why I'm using it as a placeholder block here. So at the moment it's not quite clear if it will actually require a player to right-click the mud. I hope the dispenser will also get that functionality, so we don't need a player to do that trivial step. So since a couple of versions we already have the functionality that glass bottles can be filled with water for dispenser. Which is of course super useful for a brewing system, but it could also be useful in this case, if a dispenser could also turn the dirt into mud. So the next step, we can convert the mud into clay. Let's check that out real quick.
And then the other one is if you take your mud block and you stick it on top of the dripstone, it will sort of like drip the water out of the mud and eventually dry it out, which turns into clay.
Of course, technically, clay was already renewable. If you had the Hero of the Village effect, stone masons would give clay blocks to the player as well. The only problem with this type of setup was that it was rather slow and you were at some point severely limited by the amount of lag that the villagers would create. So it takes quite some time until the stone masons would give you a clay block again. So the only way really to get decent rates out of this was just using hundreds of villagers. And with this type of setup where we can directly convert the blocks, we will probably be able to make faster farms. In the video, the mud block was converted into a clay block in a matter of seconds. It will be interesting to see how long it's gonna take exactly. So if it's just gonna be a couple of seconds, I could imagine that the clay block will schedule a block tick, that it's gonna be converted after a certain amount of ticks, but I could also imagine that random ticks will be used. And then it's probably gonna take at least 1 minute on average to convert the mud block into the clay block, or it could also take even longer. So it takes, I think, roughly about 10 minutes to fill cauldron with water or lava if you have a dripstone below. Could also imagine it's gonna take a couple minutes for this conversion here, and that's probably gonna be a decisive factor because I could imagine this step here takes a couple of minutes. The farm you'll need to build to get decent rates would be rather large. You probably will need to have a temporary storage for all your blocks. let him sit for a while. In the meantime, yeah, all the new incoming blocks will be sent to a different storage. And then after a while, you need to take all of those blocks and then either blow them up to get the clay balls, which can be crafted into the blocks again, or use Silk Touch to mine those blocks. The next step is taking the clay, putting it in a furnace, and convert it into terracotta. Of course, you also need some fuel. You can maybe even use some of the sticks and logs you get from, growing the 2x2 spruce trees to convert the moss into podzol. And then you can combine terracotta blocks, some dye into colored terracotta blocks, which can also then be smelted in the furnace again to get the glazed terracotta in the end. Just a side note, I wish we would actually have a mechanic with dispensers in the game as well to color blocks directly, so the player wouldn't need to craft this, because at the moment this farm would be AFKable, but this crafting step here would definitely require a player to do something. So either you add auto crafting to your game, or here, basically the whole production chain would stop because you just need a player here to do the necessary step. So in case you really want to make a glazed terracotta farm, you'll probably need multiple AFK accounts doing all of the necessary steps. So one player will be busy placing saplings for the moss into podzol conversion. Then you need a second player that either uses a shovel to convert the podzol into a path block, or you could also blow up the podzol. It will turn into dirt block items, and then need the second player to place the dirt again. Then it's unclear if you need a third player to convert the dirt into mud. Hopefully a dispenser will have the same functionality. Then we need the fourth player to Silk Touch mine the clay block. You could also blow it up, but then you have the clay balls and you would need to craft those into blocks again. And then you can put it in the furnace automatically with a hopper, but here we definitely need a player to combine the dye with the terracotta into colored terracotta. I'm definitely looking forward to having this block conversion chain in the game. It's going to be super useful for Skyblock, but also for peaceful mode, because in peaceful mode, the clay wasn't renewable for. Getting the hero of the village effect requires hostile mobs. Alright, let's talk about the next 1.19 mechanic that could actually also be useful for this type of setup here to get around using another account. So as I said, we will need a Silk Touch pickaxe to mine the clay to get around this crafting step, but of course, after a while, your Silk Touch pickaxe will break. But what better way than to repair it than using XP? But it's always a bit of a problem to get XP while you're doing something else. So usually you need to kill the mobs in order to get XP. There are two good ways around it, but we will probably have another one. So the two most common ways to get XP without the player interacting at all, we're using the zombified piglin mechanic. So angered piglin would drop XP even if they weren't killed by a player, or you could also use a pet wolf that would kill skeletons. But the problem with this mechanic was that it mostly relied on having a skeleton spawner nearby, and it's already announced that the zombified piglin mechanic will also be removed from a game. So we actually need a better alternative, and the Skulk Catalyst might just be what we want.
Actually is something called a Skulk Catalyst. And the main thing about the Skulk Catalyst is it's actually what causes the Skulk to spread. As you can see here, whenever a mob dies, such as a zombie, near the Skulk Catalyst, it actually spreads Skulk underneath it. And the amount is based on how much XP that zombie would have dropped.
Wow. So, the Deep Dark, it's kind of overgrown with all these skulk blocks, so that means that lots of mobs must have died there?
Quite a lot, yes.
Make it less scary. Oh, and as you can see here, when you mine some of the skulk blocks, you actually get enchanting points.
So there are two things that I found interesting about this video. The zombie dropped the XP. Player picked it up, but then still it converted the blocks under his death animation into skulk blocks. So it looked like it converted 2 stone blocks into skulk blocks. And I also checked it out. There was a XP bar at the bottom. Per mined skull block, you would get 1 XP. So you could kill a zombie instead of getting 5 XP. By mining his skulk blocks as well, you can get additional XP. It's kind of interesting. It also appeared like it's not necessary to kill the zombie yourself in order to get this block conversion, since it was dependent on the death animation disappearing. So hopefully it's enough to kill a mob with fall damage next to the skull catalyst in order to get the skulk blocks. And then also hopefully we don't need to mine the skulk blocks with a tool. I hope TNT blowing up the skulk block would have the same effect of XP balls dropping. If all of that is true, then we can definitely make some kind of XP farm that doesn't require the player to do anything. So you need some kind of mob spawner, kill them for fall damage or any other method near the skull catalyst, blow up the blocks that are incoming, and replace them with the stone generator again. And then transport the XP to the player that is doing another task. And of course, this would also be really good for peaceful mode, because I would assume any non-hostile mob that gets killed near the skull catalyst would also do the block conversion. So the next one is the boat with chest. The intended use is probably transporting items over some body of water. But I could imagine there's going to be a lot of unintended uses, mostly because the boat is larger than a minecart. So previously we had the limitation that the chest minecart or the hopper minecart is a little bit smaller than a full block. So at most, those type of entities could stand between 4 blocks at the same time. But the chest is larger than a full block. So technically, boat for chest, just imagine it here, could stand on 9 hoppers at the same time, and they will all take out items out of the boat of chest. That's something I also asked, so I can confirm this. There will be interaction with hoppers and droppers, so you can use hoppers and droppers to load the boat of chest, and also to take out the items using hoppers again, or hopper minecarts. Now, there's even another really interesting application. You could also combine boats and minecarts. So it is possible to pick up a boat entity with a minecart. And I would imagine this could be used for all kinds of furnace arrays. So usually if you have a chest minecart going across this, then each hopper below would take out an item out of the chest minecart. But if you would have the boat with the chest inside of the minecart, so I could imagine that 3 hoppers next to each other would take out items out of this construct here. So even if you won't get any dedicated redstoning content, I'm quite sure all of those new game mechanics will keep the game interesting and fresh, and there will also be probably more. So I could imagine making a mangrove tree farm could be quite challenging with all the root generation on the side, and we'll also have to see if maybe the frogs could do something useful. So there's definitely a lot to be discovered. Alright, that's it for today. Hope you enjoyed this. Thanks for watching and see you next time. Bye bye.